I'm here with J.A. Jashinski, who is the author of a book called Synagogues, which is wonderful and amusing and racy and all kinds of things that you look for in a book. Um, I was sort of wrestling with how precisely to frame this because uh, Mr. Jashinsky and I come from the same milieu, that the book is a very
Yeah.
deft, but also very warm and sort of sentimental parody and exploration of. And I was thinking about all of the incredible dodging I would have to do in order to give this the illusion of total and complete. Yeah, I mean, not that I feel that I'm particularly bound by any code of journalistic ethics. All the same, it just seems very decent and reasonable to mention that we are graduates of the same school, which of course
Full
bear
disclosure.
yeah, full disclosure, graduates of the same school, that it goes without saying, bears no resemblance whatsoever with the school depicted in the book.
Fair.
Um,
Thank you.
yeah, just so we
Thank you.
can make sure that all of the hungry lawyers in everyone's employ can sort of simmer down a bit. What inspired you to write this book? We're sort of joking about the fact that we're in our 40s. It seems that the kind of book that you've written is something that we expect of much younger writers. You know, you get out of high school, and I think of the great book Decline and Fall by Evelyn Waugh. He had just sort of
Mm,
gotten out
I
of
never read it.
it's wonderful. He had just sort of gotten out of college essentially and puts together this satire of university and early adulthood. I think about the wonderful Kingsley Amis and his very
Mm.
very funny campus novel Lucky Jim, which is also something. It's a young man's book. But here we have something sort of anomalous and wonderful, a writer who's a little bit more seasoned, revisiting this terrain. So, what exactly provoked this?
That's a great question. It's a few things. I was thinking about it the other day actually because it was a weird experience. The middle age thing we're talking about right now has been really enervating in a lot of ways. I mean, this is like all my friends and I talk about when we get together. It's like, oh, wife, kids. I become like walking cliche, like everybody loves Raymond. Uh, so I was really feeling that a lot. And then October 7th happened,
Sure.
and that kind of clarified things for a minute, for maybe 2 years. Um, and I knew I had this kicking around in my head for a while. Um, the term synagogues kind of popped in my head because I mean, I kind of don't want to reveal what it's about
Sure.
uh, till someone reads it, but that idea, that word, and the
Hmm.
idea of it popped in my head. And I'd always wanted to write about our high school experience.
Hmm.
And I wanted to capture the Jewish American experience in an unapologetic way,
Sure.
but in a way that paints us as like totally human, right? I mean, my major issue, just very broadly speaking, with anti-Semitism, anti-Israel stuff, is like this weird expectation that Jews or Israelis uh, have to live up to higher standards than everyone else. Like,
Hmm.
I think we can be, assholes who fart also. Like, we don't
Sure.
have to be perfect, and like we shouldn't have to apologize for existing. We should just keep trying to get better ourselves. That's it. So I was like, my American experience. I mean, I do believe that the '90s. I mean, everyone kind of says this about their era, but I really feel like the '90s were peak America. And growing up Jewish in America in the '90s, I felt like I gave a couple examples in the book of like anti-Semitism I experienced, but it didn't even bother me. It was like, oh, those assholes. Okay. It was like a couple of isolated incidents. And so it was just, I wanted to paint that picture because I feel like that's how the world should be in a lot of ways. Like, obviously, we've had some improvements in other ways too. Fine. I understand that. But there was just something about the freedom just to be who you were unapologetically back then. And not everyone was like over analyzing everyone's identity and credentials to death in order to see if they should or should not talk to them or hear what they have to say. That's that sort of stuff. I mean, whatever. That's been done to death. Like, I don't want to beat a dead horse there, and I don't want to use cliches for the rest of the interview. Can't believe I said that.
Well,
But
you have to remember cliches are cliches because they're
for a
true.
reason,
Yeah.
correct. I was just talking to someone about that yesterday, but I really abhor them, and I'm teaching like a writing class right now, and I'm just there's a penalty for cliches, so I shouldn't do it myself. Um, anyway, one of the ways I was actually able to tap back into it, because we're so far removed from that era. I'm still good friends with a lot of the people who were in my grade. There was a
Hmm.
bunch of them that I still talk to like very regularly. So you keep a lot of your banter and the rhythms of that kind of stay the same, like in a lot of ways. Like when we're together, we still make a lot of the same dumb juvenile jokes, and the rhythm with which we say them is consistent for, I mean, that's these are people I've known since I was single digits, like 6, 8, stuff like that. So
Yeah.
the, there's a lot of it that I retained. I've
Hmm.
also worked with kids like since forever. I never stopped. So I was a kid, and then immediately when I wasn't a kid but was still kind of a kid, I worked with kids. And then when I was supposedly an adult, I still worked with kids, and I still work with kids now. So I'm pretty tapped into that. But the thing you were talking about, who was it, Wah and Amos, that they wrote those, coming out of college or when they were younger. When I graduated from college, I was toying with the idea of like writing seriously. I'd never taken that seriously, right? I feel like growing up on the East, in the Northeast, being Jewish, that was never like writing is that, my father and his Israeli accent, he's like, that's a hobby. You don't do this. It's a hobby. And I'm like, so I was like, I never considered that. I was like, okay, he wanted me to be a doctor. And then when I told him I wasn't going to be a doctor, that broke his heart. And then I said, I might get a PhD. And he's like, so I can call you doctor? I'm like, you can call me doctor now if it makes you that happy. I'm like, it doesn't mean that much. So that was always the only options. And then I worked for a year after college. And even though I liked the people I work with, and I was teaching, I was in a school,
Hmm.
I was like, I can't do this for forever. Like I can always come back to this. Uh, but I want to try and write. And I was dabbling in that. And the first thing I was like, okay, just start writing an exaggerated, uh, basically like year by year history of your life,
Hmm.
and started from when like my earliest memory. And I went through each grade of school, and I was like, not super thorough, but just like, what can I remember? And then what things can I make up to make it kind of just fun? And I sent it to like my best friend just as I was doing updates. And like sometimes stuff would be in there that were like lies about him or his family. And like part of the joke, he's like, wait, did that really happen? I'm like, no, no, no. I'm just trying to get like the juices flowing and see if I'm any good at this.
Hmm.
And what I did before I sat down to write this book was reread all 60 pages of that that I had written.
Wow.
Uh, I mean, I'm trying to think, what year was that? That was 24 years ago. I wrote that,
Wow. Wow. Yeah.
and I still had it in like a really jumbled, whatever, how a Word doc translated to pages and stuff over updates and time, so it was a little messy.
Hmm.
But I read every single word of that, and then I was like right back there, and I have to tell you, I felt like $1 million because I remember like, oh yeah, like I was dumb enough to be like really confident in like whatever I said, and that made life a lot more fun. And I have to say, the results are better. Like the reason we see all these like overconfident morons doing so well, there's no shame. There's no like they just sorry if I'm talking too much, but like
No, you're doing great.
uh, a good friend of mine, also he went into like banking straight out of college. He went to like Wharton, not like Wharton. He went to Wharton, and he was always. I mean, you get these guys that go into finance. Like, right, there's so many douchebags. It was always so awful. Like a lot of them, even when they were nice guys, it was like they felt like they had to act a certain way.
Hmm.
And this guy, I mean, the reason he's my good friend is because he was just always super honest. He did it because he actually found it interesting,
Huh.
like understanding finance and how it worked, and he loved the game of it, and he was nothing like that. And he went and he got a great offer, huge firm. And when he went there, it was like the first, I don't know how long it was. I mean, they beat the crap out of you when you start as an investment banker. Like they make
Hmm.
you stay overnight some nights, like because that's how you get good at banking. Uh, so it was like it's like hazing. So he was like really struggling because if he had a proposition he was looking at, he'd go in, he'd say, I really like this, but like it's probably like 70% that it'll go well, and like
Hmm.
30% that it won't. And they'd be like, we need answers though. Are we doing this or are we not? And like the other guys who knew less than him, I would
Hmm.
say, they'd come in like 100%, gotta do this, buy right now. And those guys, like at first, were getting a lot more attention from bosses and managers because like people respond to that.
Hmm.
Uh, and it took him a while to adjust. I remember that. So I just remember that those guys benefit from that false bravado. And then I look back at like our old high school selves and I'm like, I feel like life was a lot smoother when you didn't question yourself as much. And I was like, okay, how can I make fun of that guy?
But I wanted to ask you a quick question about the role that October 7th played in
Hmm.
stimulating this whole thing. Just before, well, in the months before October 7th, I was working on a screenplay, as it happens,
Oh,
with,
cool.
yeah, with someone in Hollywood, a Jewish actor.
Awesome.
And yeah, it was,
Anyone
and
you're allowed to name or no?
no, no.
Okay.
But
Okay.
we were working together for a while. He reached out and we started a whole thing, and it was going to be this Jewish themed thing. And October 7th happened, and the whole project, the universe just changed. The very coordinates within which one could even think about Jewishness or Jewish identity. It was like he and I both were so utterly disoriented. It was like we were working on this project that was rooted in certain assumptions about one kind of reality. And then overnight we both woke up and there was a completely separate reality. And the whole thing, it wasn't even as if we like agreed that we should put this on pause. We just sort of wandered just sort of wandered glassy-eyed in opposite directions. I'm very curious what role that atrocity had in catalyzing this project of yours.
So there was a while where I was stunned. And I immediately was like, okay, well, like people now will see what we're talking about. Like when we talk about how it's like not your neighbor, it's really hard. Like you do some things maybe that you're not even proud of just because you're rightfully scared.
Mhm.
So there's just a different way to live like that. And I was like, okay, I'm like, the reasonable people will now understand, but like I'm sure they'll be allowed, bullshit chorus or whatever. Can I curse on this? Is that allowed?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Okay. But I was like, okay, this is like so clear. And then immediately I was like, I saw like what was it, the Black Lives Matter Chicago,
Right.
specifically their I don't know, what do they call it? I don't know, their branch or whatever. They posted
Mhm.
like a paraglider. Like I was like, you don't understand what you're doing. Like, and then I was like, oh, and then the next day in New York, like the streets were protesting like for Gaza, and I was like, retroactively they'll say like, well, we knew what was going to happen, but like that's not okay. Even if you knew what was going to happen, then make a statement like, guys, don't overreact to this, or fine, like moderate, say what you think, but like
Mhm.
this, like these are freedom fighters, liberate, like what are you talking about? So that was like really jarring, and then my brain always is like, it's the most absurdist take, and I go like comedy. It's like like South Park, maybe
Mhm.
meet South Park meets like Larry David. I don't know. Like I can't fully get rid of the neuroses, but that's like my brain's like, okay, what's the most ridiculous parody of this I can do? And then like reality has been getting harder to parody.
Oh
Like
yeah.
even if you watch South Park now, it's gone. It has to go so far. And little by little, ideas started percolating. I still have some a bit kicking around. Like I wanted to do some sort of like allegory, where no one knows the identities of the people, and like I wouldn't say what it is, and
Mhm.
then you'd be end up like rooting for whichever side, or seeing, or and seeing the complexity of
Mhm.
it, so that you have sympathy for everyone involved. And then you wouldn't realize what represents what until if anyone ever saw it, then I would tell you, kind of thing.
Mhm.
So I was toying with like more serious ideas like that, because a couple of the scripts I'd written more recently were more serious, even though I'd done only comedy for years, but middle age is less funny. So I was dealing with that, and then I was like, but like, okay, so then I wanted to talk about that. Like, okay, so why am I Jewish? I'm not observant at all.
Mhm.
Why do I care? What did I love about it? What's important to me about it? And then I just kept going back to like, I loved it. Everyone I grew up with feels like, even you. I mean, we haven't spoken since we were at school.
Yeah.
That's decades. It feels like family.
Yeah,
Like it still
sure.
feels like family. Like anyone I talk to when we go back from school, like there's people again reached out for this book, was like so like you, so
Mhm.
generously supportive. Like these are people I haven't spoken to in 25 years. Everyone's like, I'm buying a copy. I'm so excited. When they read it, they tell me how much they liked it, and they don't tell me maybe they didn't, but at least they were kind enough to not tell me, pretend they didn't read it. I don't know.
Sure.
So there's something to that, right? And that's why I send my daughter. My wife is not Jewish. We send our daughter to private Jewish day school
Uh-huh.
because I want her to have the community that I had growing up. She can always leave it like I did, move to the opposite coast,
Sure.
but it's still always there. And so it's just like this anchor, and it was, we it's intertwined with our experience of America in the '90s, uh and being proud to be Jewish and not like having to like be embarrassed or apologize. And so this started. I had the synagogues joke in my head. I'd already had that. I started thinking about. I'm like, this is just ripe for a fun thing. I want something fun. I want
Mhm.
people like, I want non-Jews to enjoy it and be like, oh, like we're really, our perspective skewed of the
Mhm.
Jewish people, to go with the theme of the title. So I, I wanted like, and I didn't cater it to anyone. I just wanted it to be like, true to the story, but like a little crazier than we really got.
Mhm.
Uh, so that was what motivate. That's how October 7th actually did motivate. Because like I want to get something out there in the world. I'm making stuff anyway.
Uh-huh.
My daughter's walking around Jewish. Like we had threats. Like I think it was like, was it like October 13th? It was like the globalized the Intifada Day or something. Where there were all these like
Right.
threats. So like our school, it was like one day that we were like some Jewish schools even closed. Like it was like a
Huh.
regular weekday, and like we have to be scared that they're going to come in. We live in a very like near a very Jewish neighborhood, and
Mhm.
there have been stuff kicking off there, like windows broken, and some
Mhm.
guy got arrested with a gun, and like,
Okay, so the conversation goes on from here, and we talk a little bit about politics and about the fact that in the 1990s, you could go your whole life with someone in the neighborhood, in the community, and have no idea what their politics were. And one of the points that Mr. Jashinski makes in his book that the very moment young people have to care about politics and have to identify themselves politically is the moment that you know that something is going desperately wrong in the society. And then we go on to talk about politics and the increasing sense of unreality and general grotesque weirdness of the whole thing, which leads us to the topic of civic unrest and its increasing presence in the world around us.
Yeah.
But I mean, everything. I mean, living in the Midwest in the George Floyd summer of confusion. Um,
yeah.
I mean, notwithstanding all of the legitimate grievances and
So okay,
yeah.
this all the throat clearing that we feel we have to do to prove like no, no, like it's the baseline should be that like this is actually my students I work with this a lot too. I'm like,
Mhm.
we can talk about anything in this class, and the primary approach is good faith. Assume that everyone wants everyone else to be equal and free and have the
Mhm.
same opportunities, and wants good for everyone that they can. I'm like,
Sure.
the fact like you have to say that. I'm like, we don't things are complicated, like I was saying before. Like, of course, that should be the baseline. Like the fact that we have to like, you know, just gesticulate and that no, 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 we're good. We're like, dude, like, and this is like, and I wonder how much of that. Look, I don't think that's exclusive to Jews. I was gonna say how much of that comes from like the Jewish experience, feeling like we have to show like no, no, we're with you,
Mhm.
but and the Jewish history of like hyper liberalism because we needed that to be successful in any society. We needed the society to be liberal for us
Sure.
to have a chance. So we've always been very sensitive to that, and we were always a big part of any liberal movement, right? Which is why there were
Mhm.
so many Jewish people shot during this, like with protests, like which had already also started with like the Women's March, like no Jewish star, no Israeli flag. Like, what if you're from Israel? What are you talking about? How can you control where you're born? Even I mean,
Yeah.
the absurdity of all this. And no, no, like I am, but I don't like Netanyahu. Like, okay, I also think that should be the baseline. I don't know. Does anyone? I mean, very few people like him, even in Israel. But the politics are messy. Someone without a majority can take control. Uh, I hate that we have to throw clear. Like, we should just trust each other, and then the merit of each point that we talk about in the conversation should
Mhm.
be judged on its merits, right? Like that's it. But like you and I both have done this like a few times already because we're
Yeah,
like
sure.
hedging. But like I'm liberal, you're liberal in what the word actually has meant for a very long time.
I wondered, what are you working on now? And has your current project or your future projects been influenced by the overwhelmingly positive response to the novel?
A few months before when I like actually sorry, this was like a few weeks I guess after I found out my wife was pregnant.
Hmm.
Um, I woke up and I get vertigo,
Hmm.
which like sucks because it can be like totally debilitating.
Sure.
Um, and I had had like this like pinched nerve in my neck. I mean, this is like the most Jewish middle-aged conversation right now. This pinched nerve in my neck from playing basketball, and
Mhm.
like my left hand was like numb and atrophying, and like I forget the sequence. I wrote it down so I won't forget. But whatever. Like it was basically I woke up in like excruciating pain because I couldn't sleep because of my neck, and I stood up to get to go because all of a sudden I woke up in pain because I couldn't sleep. Stood up because my stomach was so bad,
Mhm.
and I as I stood up, my vertigo hit, and I like kind of collapsed to the floor, like caught myself. But I had to rush to the bathroom because my stomach was in dire need,
Yeah.
and I was like ran to the bathroom, the world's spinning. I'm on the toilet. I'm like, my neck is killing me. I'm like, I'm dying. I must be dying. I'm
Mhm.
like, it's because my wife's pregnant. So now God is killing me. I'm like, so this is it. I'm like, I'm definitely dying. And I was
That's the
like, I
most
need to
Jewish, that's the most Jewish way of going about, yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
So that I was like, I gotta write down all the things I would want my daughter to know that I couldn't tell, like if I weren't here to
Uh,
tell her.
uh-huh.
Um, and I still don't know what those are. I've jotted down a lot of notes, but how do you give someone like a life of knowledge that you can't give them yourselves? Like, so I had that like that moment where like I'm dying and she needs to know some stuff, and I
Mhm.
don't even know what that is. And so I started just jotting down some notes and like funny thoughts that I was like, I want her to know who I am personality wise. Also, like not just like here's a list of the important things in life, but like here's how I would tell it to you so that it's like fun, palatable, and we both enjoy the conversations even when they're uncomfortable.
Uh-huh.
And so that's the project. It's called It Began with Diarrhea, a letter from my prolonged deathbed or something to my daughter, something like that. That's what I'm thinking of next.
Yeah, that's that sounds great.